right. I figured we'll record this for those who can't join today to save our talking. So Wes introduced herself. I'm Katie Bush. I've met a lot of you. So I currently am advising for programs in Asia, Europe, and Oceania. So think like Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji. But it's very nice of you to join us, and we really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. I do just want to say, we're going to talk at you a little bit, but mainly we do want this to be a Q&A session. If you have already attended your required advising appointment with our office, some of this is going to be a review for you. If you have not already had your required advising appointment, remember that that is a requirement for the foreseeable future. So you can always check out our advising page on our home website to see about getting that scheduled. All right. So if we are all ready, Wes, are you okay sharing your screen?
I got it.
All right. So Wes is going to pull up our homepage, so wku.edu/study abroad. And please, if you have questions as we go, feel free to put those in the chat, or you can use, the raise hand feature, and we'll get to you with those questions. Okay, so you have a lot of information at your fingertips within your application. The further you move along in the WKU application, the more info you receive, the more emails you're going to start getting. But from our homepage here, we have a link right up near the top for info on the travel policy and the COVID-19 updates. So Wes, if you want to go there. So the first thing that this is important about this page, if you didn't know it already, is just knowing that WKU does have a student travel policy for international locations. But also on this website are going to be important dates related to the travel policy, related to the appeal process, certain locations, and honestly at this point, most locations for the foreseeable future are going to require an appeal to travel. And then if you scroll down, there's also some FAQs related to the travel policy, completing the appeal process, and then just some general info for what is it like to travel during the pandemic. Just really importantly, we do update this page as it might seem as we get updates. So, don't make it a one and done stop. Like, please check this periodically, especially with COVID, but then just in general right now with the world, it's very fluid. Things change a lot. So it's just important that you kind of have some flexibility and just understand that, it is possible for things to change kind of rapidly depending on the situation. So first, I just want to talk just briefly about what the policy is. So Wes, if you scroll down in that first little drop down, so this is going to just briefly give you an outline of our policy. It is primarily based on the U.S. Department of State travel advisories. And Wes, if you want to just click on that link to go right to the US DOS page. So with these advisories, the Department of State is a branch of the federal government. They kind of work through all of our foreign affairs. They assign a level of risk to every country around the world. You can see there on the right, there are 4 levels. So with those levels, just to kind of give you a brief outline of our policy, if a location is a level 1 or 2, WKU student travel to those locations is allowed. You just do normal application process. Level 3 locations and level 4 locations are restricted. Level 3 locations can be appealed. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky with COVID. So generally speaking, level 4 locations travel is not allowed. However, we have decided to do an addendum to our travel policy to allow students to be able to appeal to level 4 locations that are a level 4 due to COVID. Kind of the reasoning for this, I think we hope, we're slowly moving towards the endemic stage of this. Also, to be honest, most of the world right now is a level 3 or 4. It's been that way for quite some time. So, we thought it was finally time to kind of open that up for level 4 appeals for COVID only, to allow some more opportunity for students to be able to travel. So let's pick one of the locations that we have in the list. Perfect. So just like Wes did, say your location is Chile. you're just going to search in that box. You can search for Chile and it's going to take you to the Department of State page for that country. So something I want to point out, if you click that read more in that box, it's going to give you a bigger overview of what the situation is and kind of what the travel advisory is telling you. But it's really important to note the language that is associated with each advisory level. So a level 4 advisory level language is do not travel. So you can see Chile right now is do not travel to Chile. So level 4 due to COVID-19. So because it's due to COVID, if you're going to Chile, you would be able to submit an appeal. The next part you see there, exercised increased caution in Chile due to civil unrest. Exercised increased caution is level 2 language. So it's completely fine to submit an appeal for Chile. Now, if it was do not travel to Chile due to COVID-19 and then do not travel due to civil unrest, you could not appeal because the only reason you can appeal for a level 4 is if it's only a level 4 for COVID. Now, if it said exercised increased caution due to COVID-19 and exercised increased caution due to civil unrest, those are both level 2, no appeal needed. So just, yeah, important to understand that each level has its own language associated with it. So Wes has pulled up Kenya. So you can see right now, Kenya is a level 2 for COVID, crime, terrorism, health issues, and kidnapping. So no appeal needed. But that's also important just to note, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the appeal because that's why we're all here. But when you are submitting your appeal, it is necessary that you talk about any risks associated with traveling to that country. So don't only talk about COVID. So for example, with Chile, where it talked about COVID and terrorism, you want to address both of those. Also on these pages, once Wes gets it back up, so when you scroll down, it's going to have lots more information, and this is what you're going to use for your appeal. So if you keep going, it's going to have info about, where the embassy and consulate locations are. You're going to have to put that in your appeal. It's going to give you just an overall description of the location. It's going to talk about entry and exit requirements, visa requirements, and then that safety and security and health is really important that you pay attention to everything that's talked about there. What we saw with some winter and spring appeals is they only talked about COVID and not any of the other risks associated with traveling to their location, and they didn't necessarily get approved for that. So just make sure you're being very thorough and comprehensive when you talk about the location that you're going to. Also keep in mind, if you are on a multi-country program, you are going to have to talk about every location that is in your program. So with that, just kind of moving into the appeal. Wes, if you could go back to, thank you, perfect. So for the appeal, most people for the foreseeable future are going to have to do one because pretty much the whole world is that level 3 or a level 4. And remember, level 4 appeals can only be done if it's just a level 4 for COVID. So we have currently set appeal submission deadlines for summer. Fall and academic year deadlines will be set next, and then we'll look at winter and then spring. We generally keep those deadlines about 60 days from the start of the term that you're going to, so you can kind of have an idea of when that could possibly be, but we hope to set the fall and academic year one pretty soon. For summer, because there's a lot of variation in program lengths and start dates, we do have 2 dates for that. So if your summer program dates start prior to June 19th, March 15th is your appeal deadline. If your program dates start on or after June 19th, April 15th is going to be your appeal deadline. So just really important, don't miss that deadline. No late submissions are accepted. So it's really important that you get that in. So just kind of talking about, and Wes, if you want to scroll down to like the FAQ section for the appeals.
And I will remind you too that the 15th is during spring break.
Yes.
So if you have plans and you don't feel like you would be able to complete it before then, you can submit it before the deadline, but after the deadline, not so much.
Yep. And just, you get one submission. So If you have, if technically you fall on the April 15th, but you want to submit it for the March 15th to get an answer earlier, you can't, that's your one submission. So you can't submit it for March 15th and then, oh, I didn't do a good enough job, so I'm going to resubmit in April. You just get one submission. So keep that in mind. So with the appeal, the process for how that works. So when you submit your appeal, it is reviewed by the members of WKU's International Travel and Risk Management Committee. There's about usually between 12 to 15 members of that committee. So each member reviews every person's appeal. Then that whole group gets together and they meet to discuss whether or not for each individual student, they want to recommend or not recommend travel to Dr. Fisher, the provost. Say Jolie submits it, we say we want to recommend her travel, that recommendation is sent to Dr. Fisher, and then Dr. Fisher has the final travel decision determination for that. So what's really important is that you take it seriously. I tell students, please treat it as if it's an exam. Answer every question thoroughly, answer every question. You would be surprised in the past, we had appeals submitted with, one-word answers. Some of the questions skipped. Those appeals aren't approved. So these are taken very seriously by every member of the committee as well as Dr. Fisher. So just, overwhelm us with information. What the committee and what the provost want to see is that each individual student is taking the time to research their location and their program and showing that they are taking personal responsibility for their health and safety on site. So it is really, on an individual level basis. So just, important that you really take the time to fill it out completely. So with that, appeal approval is not guaranteed. So you want to make sure that for your program what the withdrawal policies are, what the refund policies are, because if your appeal is not approved and you're financially liable when you have to withdraw from your program, that is your responsibility. So just making that very clear. The other thing is that if your appeal is approved, it's a provisional approval. So what does that mean? So it means you need to make sure you complete all of the post-decision pre-departure app materials within your WKU application, that you are attending our office's pre-departure orientation, and that also if the situation in your program location were to deteriorate, we can revoke that approval. So again, just always important to know what are the refund and withdrawal and cancellation policies of the program you're going on. Okay, so how do you actually do the appeal? So there are multiple different ways to access it from this page. You're going to get emails from our office. Depending on when you have applied, this is a new form for us, so we have updated to include links in your WKU application. You can, always reach out to us, but this page is going to be your main place to go. So if you just want to click on access the appeal form. Now it's only open for summer right now. As soon as we get, fall and academic year deadline set, we'll open it up for fall and academic year and then winter and spring and so on. But you're just going to hit apply now and then choose, it might ask you to log in with your net ID and password. And we're going to make Wes do this. I have about 6 of these in the system, so we'll give Wes a fake one.
Maybe it's the internet wants to work today in HCIC.
It always goes slow in the afternoon. It's ready for its coffee. So then you're just going to select the term for the term that your program is in. And like I said, right now, summer is the only option, but eventually the others will be opened up. So then once you go in there, you're going to have a few application materials. There's going to be some signature documents that you'll sign, but the main ones are going to be the questionnaire items. So these are going to have, actual questions for your, what your program looks like. So travel details, very general, what's your program name, where are you wanting to go? Is there a sponsoring organization? So for example, if you're going through Keys, it's a Keys program. If you're going through ISA, it's an ISA program. If you're going on an exchange to Kansai Gaidai is going to be your sponsoring organization. And then it's, kind of moving on from there. It's going to ask for who can we reach out to for that at that organization in case we need to get in touch. It's going to ask you to upload a detailed itinerary. Make it as detailed as you can. If there are some things you don't know at the time of your appeal because you just don't, like, it's just not provided to you, just note that. Don't just assume that we know you don't have that info. And that goes for any question on here. Use all of your resources to find the answer, but if it just comes down to, I will not receive that info until, June 1st, let us know that, or else we're going to assume you just didn't answer the question. It's going to ask you some questions about, why do you want to travel to a level 3 or level 4 COVID location? Do you have past travel experience? And then kind of moving from there, getting a little bit deeper into the structure and support of your program. So, how is it organized? What kind of pre-departure activities do they have for you? What services do they offer you on site? And then again, that personal responsibility is important. So some questions about, how are you personally working to make sure you're safe and healthy on site? The safety and security questionnaire is going to be the meat of it. If you have gotten into your WKU application, we also have what's called a safety and security review that every student studying abroad has to complete. A lot of these questions are the same. So if you have already done that, you can kind of use some of that same work to help do your appeal. So it's going to ask you, go to the State Department page. Tell us what the advisories are for. Where Wes was. Then it's going to ask you to go to the CDC destination page. And again, when you go to CDC, make sure you're putting more information in than just COVID. So you can select your country. Well, where are we going this time? All right, the UK. So this page is going to have, as you can see kind of on the menu, it's going to have general info for what's the COVID levels. Then it's going to go over what, vaccines and medications are required or recommended. It's even going to give you like a healthy packing list. So when you do your appeal and you talk about what you found on the CDC page, talk about more than just COVID. If it, for example, you're going somewhere in Africa or in Asia and you need to take anti-malarial pills, talk about that. If you have a yellow fever vaccination requirement, make sure you mention that. And then, just kind of moving on, it's going to give you some examples of risks to be thinking about. Make sure that you comprehensively look at what those are from the information provided to you about your country location. Then it's going to ask you, okay, you've identified these risks. What are you doing to mitigate them? So for example, with COVID, what steps are you taking in place for COVID? Have you gotten vaccinated? Are you going to wear your mask? Do you know what the social distancing regulations are? Are you going to take hand sanitizer? If it's, a medical, something else non-COVID related, it's an example again with malaria. Okay, I'm going to take my anti-malarial pills while I'm there, and I'm going to avoid, going to this location, or, hey, I know maybe their water isn't the best, so I'm going to make sure that I'm only drinking bottled water while I'm on site. In terms of crime and safety, being aware of my surroundings, understanding, where locations are that pickpockets might like to frequent the most. So just really taking that comprehensive approach to it. Then it's going to just ask questions about, what's your housing situation? Are there any risks in the housing that you're in? What kind of transportation are you going to use on site? Local emergency services. How do you contact the police? How do you contact an ambulance? And my biggest tip, because it's one thing I always look for, now this is not make it or break it. What is the equivalent of 911 in your location? That's something you want to know before you actually need to use it. So find that out and put it in your phone. Then again, it's going to ask you, where's the embassy and how far away is that from where your lodging is? As well as, what entry requirements. And these are not just COVID entry requirements. So do you need a visa? In terms of, are there other vaccinations that are required? In terms of COVID, is there a quarantine? Do you have to show a negative test? Do you have to show your vaccine card? Is there a special vaccination portal you have to complete? All of that. And then I think there's a couple more questions to that one. So just make sure you hit all of those. Yes, it will save your answers. But I do always recommend, if it gives you the option to save, hit save, but it does do like an automatic save every so often. But no, you don't have to fill it out all in one go. You can work on it and come back to it. Yeah, then there's just going to be some answers, some questions about more health stuff, and then here with communication. So big tip for this one: how will you access safety and security updates while on site? If you are a U.S. citizen, you need to be enrolling in the U.S. Department of State STEP program. We talk about that in a few places within our application. Make sure you put that. If you're not a U.S. citizen, does your home country have something that you can enroll in terms of, where they can notify you of things that may be affecting, your safety on site? Same with the embassy. You're going to put the embassy for your home country. You wouldn't want to put the U.S. embassy if you're not a U.S. citizen, because it wouldn't be very much help to you. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind based on your home citizenship. Also, just some general questions about communication. A big one here: don't put that your only way of communicating is going to be via internet, because what if you don't have internet? So really important to look into getting a SIM card on site, or if your current cell phone plan will allow you to use it for calling and texting and data and stuff in that country. But we have had students that put, well, if I have the internet, well, what happens if there's no internet? So something just to be thinking about there. And then again, just some general contact information for you. I know we collect this in your normal application, but this is a separate process from the normal application, so that's why we have this question here as well. All right, so I'm almost done talking at you. So the other part is required insurance. So likely your program provider has some sort of comprehensive international and travel insurance plan for you. So you want to check with them. If you are on an exchange program, or if your program is listed as direct enroll, then likely you need to be on the WKU plan. So you can ask us if you have questions about that, but if you're with KEYS or CCSA or ISA or API or CIEE, or CIS Abroad, TEEN, basically any of the alphabet soups, probably like a 99% chance likelihood your insurance is through them, but we can always verify that for you.
And then
I saw a question.
Yep, I was going to say there is a question. So is there a way to edit the answers moving forward? Yes, you can edit through the time of submission. So if you go in and something changes, or there's a new contact information, or you receive something that's changed, itinerary, your flights are updated, you can go in and update that through the time of submission. So if things change between now and March 15th when they're due, you can go in and update it 4 times every day if you wanted to, but it would need to be final at the time of submission.
Yep. Yeah, and once you complete everything, that's when it will give you the option, a submit button will pop up at the top. So that's, I know I went over a lot, but we just wanted to make sure, you actually could get into and see what the appeal form looks like, especially since we only have it open for summer right now. So if you're in a future program, I'd be talking about this you would have no idea of what it looked like. So now I just want to open it up to Q&A. So what questions do you have about completing the appeal, about the travel policy, anything like that? And I would ask, because there's only a few of us here, if you do have a question, please turn your camera on and just go ahead and ask it. And I see we had a question that was, my program starts on June 30th. Should I apply for the March 15th deadline or the April 15th? So technically, April 15th is your appeal deadline date. However, if your program, for example, their withdrawal policy, like you start to have non-refundable payments before that date, please feel free to use the March 15th. And I believe your program is a KEYS program. So for KEYS, once you get past April 1st, you start to be, held to their refund policy and financial penalties. So I would recommend, if you're able, go ahead and submit it with the March 15th, but you do officially have until April 15th if you wanted. Any other questions?
So I kind of have two. One is about the one I just asked because on so I'm on the application right now and it says completed requirements and it has like 6 or 7 of them and it won't let me click on it to edit it. It just has like the I. So I can see what I wrote, but I can't edit it.
We'll have to look at that because you should have the option to go in and edit it. Like you should be able to click on the title of it. And if you want to hang on after, we can stop recording and we can actually let you share your screen and show us. But it should be that you're able to edit it until you submit.
Okay. And then a second question for the insurance part. Well, if I'm not gonna like confirm my program till the end of the month and I want to submit this application by the 15th, like if I haven't bought the insurance, like I don't know what I should do for that part or if I should just buy it because like who knows if I'm actually gonna be able to go or not. But
so I believe that your program is what we call like a special program because it's not like it's one that was created just for you.
yeah.
So does the organization that you're going through, do they offer an insurance plan as part of your program package?
No, I have to buy it separately.
Okay, so that's going to be through our office.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yep. So you would, for that question, you would just answer it that no, it's going to be WKU's and we have our policy information.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
I have a question about the insurance too. So like, what specific thing do I have to write about the insurance? Like the kind of insurance that I get, or like a copy? I don't know.
Yeah, so you're on a KEYS program. So KEYS actually just sent any WKU students a copy of their insurance policy. But you can always reach out to the provider that you're working with if you're not KEYS and ask them. All that section asks is, does your program provider provide insurance, yes or no? If the answer is yes, then upload a copy of the policy. That's all it's asking. So you don't have to do anything more than that. And any of the program providers that you guys are going through, their policies are pretty much the same year to year. So you should be able to reach out to them to get a copy of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And then I do know specifically for KEYS, they have an entire section on insurance and coverage, and it breaks it down by policy, gives you some basic like FAQs, and then it shows you like the dates that they're valid for. So I know KEYS does a really good job of breaking that information down. So it'll be really easy for you to answer some of those things. Any other questions before we have folks jump off and have Rachel share her screen? Oh, Hayden.
Oh, I have a question. So for the appeal, should I wait to do the appeal until I know I've been accepted to my program?
Yeah, so because I know you're content guide and for the year. So with that, it kind of depends on the timing. So theoretically, you should receive whether or not you've been accepted before the appeal deadline. However, if the appeal deadline is before you know if you're accepted, you want to do the appeal. But I'm gonna guess for Kansai Gaide that you will have that answer before the appeal deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, if nothing else, we'll have Rachel stay on and we'll look at her application together. We did record this today, so we'll get it out and uploaded. That way, if any of your friends that are also studying abroad, I know I've had a couple students ask if they could have access to the information. We'll send out an email when that's downloaded and can be shared. And then in the meantime, if you do have other questions, feel free to email Katie or I, or you could also work with our ambassadors on some peer advising things. So if those things come up and you need immediate answers, let us know and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
right, we can probably stop recording.
Yes.